Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, you'll be able to find us. You can also find our previous shows on my website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce our two guests today, and they are Rebecca Morris and Candace Taylor. And folks, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching this, that's Rebecca up top, and that's Candace. And I should mention that I know both of them for a couple of years, I guess. And Rebecca, as you'll hear about, is an actor, among other things. Candace Taylor is a teacher, director, and specifically, they're involved in a play that's currently in North Carolina stage called Be Here Now. And I'll just give, if I can, Candace, if you don't mind me saying this, a quick plug that I did get to see it and I loved it. So I'm encouraging other people.
I don't mind you saying that at all.
Oh, okay. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about it later. But first of all, Rebecca, this is the first time I've had the honor of interviewing you. So what I always ask is, as a child, you grew up where?
I grew up in Delaware for the most part, but I was born in Germany. My parents were both in the military, so.
Okay, so when you were growing up in Delaware or wherever else you were, did you always know you wanted to be an actor?
I wouldn't say always, but pretty early on. And I actually remember when I thought, yes, I want to be an actor. And it's kind of strange because one of my older sisters was in like a showcase, an actor showcase in junior high or something like that. And I went to see it. And I remember she had a moment on stage where she was like tossing grapes and catching them or something like that. And she almost choked on one. And it's the most absurd thing to think, oh my God, anything can happen. I want to be an actor when she's like choking on a grape. Obviously she's fine, but it was just one of those weird moments. But we always, growing up, I have a large family, and so all the girls in my family anyway, we were always putting on plays and forcing our younger brother to do stuff with us. So yeah.
Was that intentional, the grape thing? Was that intentional, or it was just?
I don't remember. Now I hope so, because how terrifying. You know?
Well, I'm thinking too bad. It's too bad Candace didn't hear that story earlier, because we could have worked into the current stage, you know. And there were eating scenes in that current play, so that would have been something. Do you remember the very first play you were ever in, Rebecca?
The very first official play I was in was Charlotte's Web. I believe I was in 6th grade. So this is right before my family moved to Delaware.
And so what was your role in that?
I was the narrator.
Okay. Because I have this great idea for a fundraiser, which I think I've shared with Candace. But for a fundraiser, I'd love NC Stage or anybody to pick this up. And that is, everybody would recreate their first role. You know, so for example, Charlotte's Web, do you still remember the lines at all, or no?
No, I do remember some of the songs, some of the lyrics to the songs, but that's it.
Was there was a record of this anywhere?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe, but I have no idea.
Okay, but wouldn't that be cool though, that everybody would recreate their first role so you can have it live forever? You know, at NC Stage, you do for 5 minutes, everybody would do their first role, just a thought, you know. So after you made it through fun. Charlotte's Web, what was after that?
You're not going to believe this, but I mean, literally because we moved to Delaware, another version of Charlotte's Web.
So you're being typecast on this? That
I guess so, because I think it wasn't a musical this time, but I still think I was the narrator. Maybe it's all confused in my brain. It's really hard to know anymore. It's so long ago.
Well, then did you go to school for acting after that?
Yes, and you won't believe it. No, yes, I did.
Well, try us. Candace and I are open. What won't we believe?
Oh, I was just going to make another Charlotte's Web joke.
But
I only did that twice, I swear.
Okay, Candace, we have to remember, we have to try to get Charlie to do this at NC Stage, you know, so Rebecca can make a comeback.
Rebecca's made for it.
Okay, typecast. So go from there. So did you go to school for acting eventually?
Yes, I did.
Okay, where'd you go to school?
Well, I went to school at Davis Elkins College, which is a liberal arts school in West Virginia. So not exactly, hot spot for, not at New York City or anything like that. But I really wanted to have more opportunities to be on stage all the time. I think that's the biggest reason why I went. I was like, oh, this is a small school. The department is small. And so that's where I went. And I was on stage a lot. So.
When did you decide you wanted to be an actor after college or as a full-time thing or part-time thing?
I mean, that was always the intention. And so I kind of found my way. Trying to think where I went after college, but I guess I had aspirations to be an actor in larger venues, but never really the interest in living in any large urban areas. So I've managed to find my way living in a place where I'm happy to be. So,
and one other question about your background tying into what Candace does. Have you ever directed or wanted to direct?
I think, what is my directing experience? I did direct one of the tours for Immediate Theater Projects, It's a Wonderful Life. So the touring company, I directed them. And then Willie actually brought me back to assistant direct their production of Well, which never made it on stage because that was the show that was supposed to go up in March of 2020. So we never quite made it, but I did some assistant directing for that show as well.
Will that be coming anytime again?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, too bad. So yeah. Candace, same kinds of questions. I spoke to you once quite a while ago, but in terms of you growing up, were you an actor at all or just go into directing?
Rebecca and I have remarkably similar stories. My father
Wait. You were in Charlotte's Web also?
No, not Charlotte's Web.
Okay.
Not that one. But my father was also in the military and we lived in Germany and I did my first play in Munich. I did The King and I in German.
That was in German?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
And I do not remember any of the songs, or I definitely would sing them for you.
I was in The King and I
too. Really? In German? No. Do you remember the role you had, Candace?
Oh, I was one of the many kids, just one of the kids of the many wives of the king. So there were probably about 20 of us. It was a huge theater. So it was,
I always wonder about that. Now, in terms of you were a kid as an actor, was that by choice, your choice or your parents' choice or a combination?
Oh, I'm gonna say it was mine. I knew I wanted, I don't know why, because I really hadn't been exposed to it, but I knew I wanted to be an actor. I remember lying to my grandfather when I was 5, when he asked me what I wanted to be, and I told him I wanted to be a singer because I didn't think he would buy actor. Yeah, so yeah, my first show was in Germany, and it was The King and I.
And same thing too. Then after that, did you go to school for acting?
Oh yeah. After that, I pretty much every time there was a chance to take an acting class, I did up until I went to high school, and then I did all the plays in high school, and pushed everybody to be in them and all that kind of thing. And what else? Then I went to college and majored in theater, and grad school and majored in acting. So I just it was the one thing the whole time.
Where'd you go to school, undergraduate and graduate?
Oh, I went to Northwestern University for undergrad and University of the Professional Theater Training Program at the University of Delaware for my graduate school. Yeah.
And so when did you make the transition? Because I'm trying to think if I've ever seen you as an actor, but I've seen you work directing. When did you get into directing?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that I've made a transition at all. I take the jobs that come to me. And so, yeah, I haven't done much acting here in Asheville. I did one show at Warren Wilson. I did Fighting Mears, and at NC Stage, I did a play called This a few years ago. But I am doing one this summer. I'm going to do Having Our Say with Different Strokes.
Oh, okay, very exciting. Because the truth comes out, Rebecca, when I ask actors and directors, none of them want to admit it, but most of them tell me they prefer directing. I don't know about Candace, but do you, by the way, do you have a preference, acting or directing, Candace?
Oh, no. I would say I prefer acting because I feel like I know more about it. As a director, I feel like I'm still fledgling.
Because it's interesting you say that most actors I speak to who become directors say they prefer directing. The truth, they don't want to admit it, but the truth is they don't have to memorize the lines that way, so, it's, so you have to know you have to know the whole play, but you don't have to memorize the lines. And let's kind of segue from that to the current play, which talks about memorizing lines. You have a bunch of lines there, Rebecca. Talk a little bit, Candace, the current play we're talking about now, Be Here Now. How do you come across that, or how NC Stage come across that?
Well, as far as I know, I think it was commissioned in Cincinnati, and then I know these are the weird connections. The artistic director of that theater is a friend of Charlie's and mine, and that's how Charlie and I met, was through him. And so I know Charlie saw the show when it first opened, and he liked it then. So I think it came, hot off the press to him.
Had you known the play?
No, not at all. Never heard of it. Never heard of this playwright either.
And in fact, the same thing too. Were you familiar with the play?
I was not. I went to their sneak peek event, and they didn't do any of the readings because they had yet to secure the play officially. But I heard the description and I went home and immediately purchased the script. So I came into the audition and the callback having read the script a couple of times already.
Boy, that's pretty impressive. I'll ask you this, Candace. You just went through auditions, I know. Do many people do what Rebecca does? Read a script and like that?
Oh, well, for the union actors, absolutely. Most actors will have read the script before they show up for the audition, if it's at all possible to get it. But then, I work with students and they most of them haven't read a play. So
a play, yeah, or even know what it's about,
Yeah.
it would help. Stephen, before I saw the show, yeah, I read about it, read the reviews, and had an idea for the show. But it's amazing, Candace and Rebecca, how few people don't do that, and I'll just, and a quick aside, I talk about a play that a friend of mine, Mark Jones, you may know, directed at Hart, and it was Assassins. And are you familiar with the play Assassins? Or interesting play, but Mark said a guy complained at the show that, and it worked out, he was disgusted because he said it was about assassins of presidents, and Mark said, well, what do you think it was, with the play Assassins? But isn't it incredible, Candace, I find that a lot of people come and they have no idea what they're going to see, it might be helpful.
That's very true. That's very true. And usually the ones who don't look it up are the ones who get angry and upset about things that they see.
But can you imagine Assassins? What do you think it's about? But it's funny. It is a musical. It's not a comedy, but it's a musical, and it's a very interesting play. But so anyway, so I came prepared to see Be Here Now. But if I can ask you, Candace, for the folks who haven't seen it, if you give kind of like a Reader's Digest version, which isn't so easy on this play.
It is not. It's not. I've tried to tell people about what it's about, but I will say that here's what I've come up with. That first of all, it's what I'm going to call a dramedy. It is very funny, and there are definitely serious things that happen in it as well. So adjectives I've been using: poignant, quirky, rom-com, It's definitely an enjoyable 90 minutes, even though at first it looks like it might not be so enjoyable. I don't, that's, there's, you have to establish the circumstance before you can make the change in it. So the beginning of the play, I think, is a little confusing for a couple people. They think, they're not quite sure what's going on.
And Candace, that was a brilliant description of it, because same thing too. I've been trying to describe it to people and I can't, I wrote in my blog, I think I said some of the same words you said, but it's not really a romantic comedy per se. It's not, it's definitely quirky. It's something like you've ever seen.
Quirky characters. Yeah. And you know what I've been saying to people, it reminds me a lot of things like Steel Magnolias, or remember that old TV show Alice?
Yeah, sure.
In the diner.
Before Rebecca's time, maybe a little bit. Alice,
some of those.
You saw Alice?
It reminds me of that kind of, women back and forth comedy sort of thing, and and a little possible romance in there,
Well, possible romance.
And I was I'm sorry to interrupt you, Blaine, but I was trying to think of a clever way to describe it.
Right.
Yesterday. I'll tell you what I came up with if I can remember it. I don't know if this is useful. So you take one depressed misanthropic or nihilistic misanthrope, add one guy with no cell phone and a crow, two excessively cheerful coworkers, and a dollop of altered states. Shake them all together and you get Be Here Now.
That's pretty good.
It really is, because it would have described it, before I had seen it. But boy, it just threw me, especially Rebecca, your performance, and we'll talk a little bit about that, in that you start out in the beginning, and you're the most glum, negative person I've ever seen. I'm ready to strangle you. I'm here for an enjoyable evening, and Rebecca is, not having fun. And then you made this transition about halfway through, was just amazing. How do you feel about the role? I guess that you had it's a dichotomy, I guess, of sorts, that you had these different parts of the same person you were playing. Was that tough for you?
I don't think it was tough, actually. I mean, it's really actually a lot of fun to kind of, really lean into the gloom and then have a great time with the transformation. I definitely feel like I had to be pushed to I know, actually, I don't feel like, I know I had to be pushed to kind of take it farther once the transformation, more of the transformative stuff was happening. We'll just put it that way. But I really enjoyed playing the two different sides, because not to that degree, but I certainly feel in my life that I have those different sides to myself, and so it was really just a matter of dialing up those sides, I feel like. And I think, we all contain multitudes, so it's fun to get to show such opposing sides,
And not only show opposing sides, but you also playing against these two people, the two women with the most cheerful, or the one in particular. I just loved her, and then that guy you played against, and mention names, I'm not good at names, but talk a little bit about the other characters who were in it, Rebecca.
Well, there's the characters are Luann and Patty, who are the co-workers who are, well, first of all of the other characters are related. They are all of one family.
Right.
The Cooper family. In fact, in the script, they are all given a last name, and Barry has no last name. She's just Barry. But Patty, who is played by Pat Snoyer Black, I believe that's her correct last name. Sorry, Pat, if that's not correct, is sort of the more mothering figure, always giving advice, always having the right answer for everybody, trying to fix everyone. And then there's Luann, who is played by Pilar, who is Patty's niece. Correct me if I'm getting these relationships wrong, Candace, because I feel like I should know. But in the moment, and they just provide this sort of wonderful back and forth with each other, and they both have their own sort of very strong sense of self, and very grounded, and have found a kind of happiness, and they just love to chat, you know, which is not what Barry loves at the beginning.
Right, exactly. I mean,
and then there's Mike, who's played by Patrick, and I can't think of his last name. Candace,
Philip Kursaw.
Oh, I'm sorry, Philip. Jeez. So sorry. It's been a long week. It's only Wednesday. Philip, sorry if you're watching this. I know your name.
and talk about his role, which is also kind of cool.
Yeah, Mike has a crow. That's how he's described in the script, right? He doesn't care about his appearance, and he has a crow. That's just the kind of guy he is. He's just he's a real nice foil for Barry as well. I feel like, because he provides he's also sort of found this Zen existence, and has found his own kind of happiness, and really isn't ruffled at all, at least initially, by Barry's demeanor. You know, he kind of lets it sort of slide off his back. And I guess I don't want to say
No,
too
that's
much,
cool. Just,
but,
I mean, if anybody's listening to this, Candace, or watching this, they'll still have no idea what the play is about, but just get to it, you know, you'll enjoy it, because it has all these different parts to it. And again, a compliment to you, Candace. The most amazing thing I think about the show was the directing job you did with Crow. You know, it's just, I was blown away. No, you laugh. And I was just disappointed with you when I went to the first night to talk back, and you didn't bring out the crow. I really wanted to meet him. But you know, but it points out, we're kidding, but it points out the value, I guess, of the different, seriously, backstage people behind the show, because the sound cues, like who is responsible for this sound in that? And
the sound design,
right,
was Mark Sears, and the person running it every night is our unbelievably good stage manager, Lindsay Moss, who I've worked with her twice now, and she's just incredibly good at her job, all facets of it. And if your people who are watching know what a stage manager is responsible for, it's a great deal of very specific things, and Lindsay is incredibly good at keeping track of all of that.
If I can, I'll set you up for a recommendation, Candace, in terms of anybody's watching or listening, in terms of not only the importance of a stage manager, but what a great way to learn about theater and about acting. I don't know about you, but I think it'd be cool if all actors were stage managers at some point in time. Like Rebecca, were you ever a stage manager?
No.
Okay, but when you think about it, wouldn't it be useful, Candace, if all actors?
I did it, and it was extremely useful to me. I did it. I was an assistant stage manager on Merchant of Venice in college, and I was a stage manager for a new theater company that just started out in Chicago back in the 80s. And what I realized while I was yelling at people was, I'm the kind of stage manager I would hate. So I don't have the temperament.
Just think about this play. I realized how important the stage manager is, you know, and get kind of like an unsung hero.
Yeah.
There are so many, even who would think in this play, but there were sound cues, you know, lots of sound cues, and they were all perfect, you know, every last one. So back to the show. So it runs, Candace, we still have 2 more weeks. When's it run, and what nights and stuff like that?
Yes, it's Wednesday through Sunday, every week until December 11th. The shows are at 7:30, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings, and then Sunday matinee at 2:30. And you can find out more information by going to ncstage.org. And you can purchase tickets there and find out more information about their entire season of shows.
Okay, talk about something else too, which I happen to like, I think, as I get older, but this show is not a real long show, and talk a little bit about that. It's how long?
What was it? It's an hour and 27, I think, was the last one I heard, something like that. It's about an hour and a half. Yeah.
Which I don't know about you as an actor, Rebecca, but as an audience member, I'm going to love, you know, The one act shorter plays, I'm really enjoying them, you know, and also I made an exception for this play, Sword at Night, but I love matinees, you know, it's just, but maybe that's an age thing, but NC Stage is one of the great theaters also, because wherever you sit, you're going to have a good seat, you know. And let me ask you about that, Rebecca. I wonder too, in terms of as an actor, how is it playing? So you have in center in front of you, but then you're aware of the two sides. Are you kind of always aware of that, or Rebecca, Candace makes you aware of it?
Yes to both.
Yeah.
There's always that adjustment moving from the rehearsal room to the actual space, and then from the empty theater, you know, when you're doing tech or just rehearsing in the theater before opening, and then when there are people there, yeah, it's always there's always a part of my brain, and I'm sure everyone else's brain, including Philip's. I'm so sorry about that. That's gonna haunt me forever. I feel like such a jerk. But yeah, just having to have that awareness so that you're making those micro adjustments, you know, and yeah, there's kind of this constant need to move too, just constantly adjusting and moving in that space. But hopefully everyone, as you said, has a good seat.
What was cool about your performance and the performance of everybody else's is I was off to the side, but I felt I was part of the show. You know, I didn't feel like I was being ignored, you know, the whole time. And what I like, Candace, what you have everybody do at the end, they take their bows and they bow to each part of the audience. So
yeah, but I feel like that's the bows sometimes start to get longer than the show, but I think it's only fair that the audience get a full front view at least one place. You know,
we did. Talk about after this show runs. Let me ask you both. Anything on your, I guess, Rebecca, performing agenda coming up after this that you can share?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, not a thing. There's a couple of shows I'd like to audition for, but really just kind of looking forward to taking a break through the end of the year.
Okay. And by the way, I forgot to mention, I think where I first saw you on stage was that other show, which you just knocked my socks off. It was the one about this, not Galileo, was the, well, it was about, help me with the name.
Silent Sky. So
Yeah,
it was about
boy,
the computers at back in the day.
Yeah, did I love that show though? Completely surprised me. And that was one, Candace, I had no idea what I was going to see, but I loved it. So my wife, that was just wasn't that a great show?
Oh, I loved it so much. Yeah.
Great show. And Candace, same thing for you. Anything upcoming in terms of directing, acting? We mentioned acting, we heard.
Yeah, and then I just had auditions last night for Native Gardens at Asheville Community Theater, which will go up in February.
Okay, great. So keep me informed about those, but certainly anything you're directing or performing, and I'll see you in different strokes. That'll be great. And Rebecca, same thing too. Keep me informed as to what you're doing. And I want to thank you both. Just to mention one last time, if you want to see Be Here Now, you still have 2 weeks to see it. Candace, those dates again?
That's from now until December 11th, Wednesday through Sunday, every week.
Okay, and the website one more time?
NCStage, STAGE.org.
Okay, and I'd like to recommend that people try to see this because it's going to be a show that, if anything, you'll spend a lot of time trying to remember what it's about. You know, I think I loved how you did that, Rebecca. That was a great description because for the life of me, I was trying to write up in my blog and had trouble, you know, and so how to describe, because it's not an easy plot, and Candace, you did a great job also describing it, but it's definitely quirky. It's definitely worth seeing. And I think Rebecca and the rest of the crew, you were great and fine job of acting. So thank you very much for being a guest on this edition of the Blaine's World podcast. I also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and we'll hopefully see you folks sometime in the near future real soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Blaine.
Okay, and we're just going to sign off here. And